Hello everybody, I'm Miss Jessica from EVPL McCullough, and today we're going to be reading another book for our Chapter Book Storytime Variety Pack, and today's title is going to be a science fiction book, because last time we were together, that's what our Plinko board chose for us. So this book caught my eye because it has a very colorful cover, and then also the title was very intriguing, so I definitely had to check out and see what this book is about. So we are going to be reading Sal and Gabby Break the Universe by Carlos Hernandez. Now this is presented by Rick Riordan, and Rick Riordan is the author behind the Percy Jackson series, and he has made it a point to try and help other authors get published that might represent different cultures and different backgrounds that we don't normally see. So that is why it is a Rick Riordan Presents book, because he helped with getting this book published. So let's read the inside cover and see what this book is going to be about. When Sal Vidone meets Gabby Real for the first time, it isn't under the best of circumstances. Sal is in the principal's office for the third time in 3 days, but it's still the first week of school. Gabby, a student council president and editor of the school paper, is there to support her friend Yasmani, who just picked a fight with Sal. She is determined to prove that somehow Sal planted a raw chicken in Yasmani's locker, even though no one saw him do it, and Bloody Poultry has since mysteriously disappeared. Sal prides himself on being an excellent magician, but for this sleight of hand, he relied on a talent no one would guess. Maybe except Gabby, whose sharp eyes never miss a trick. When Gabby learns that he's capable of conjuring things much bigger than a chicken, including his dead mother, and she takes it all in stride, Sal knows that she is someone he can work with. There's only one slight problem. Their manipulation of time and space could put the entire universe at risk. Ooh, so that right there, that is why this is a science fiction title, because they are going to be doing something that is kind of science-based. So they are going to somehow manipulate time and space. And science fiction has a lot of things where it is based in something that could possibly happen in our future, if not already connecting to science that we are already aware of. So a lot of times in science fiction, you will see things like aliens or time travel or spaceships. So this book, somehow they are going to break the universe. All right, let's get started with chapter 1. There's all sorts of bad advice out there about how to deal with bullies. Ignore them, stand up to them, tell a teacher, tell a parent, tell your dentist while he's jamming your teeth back into your face. The real way to deal with a bully is to stick a raw chicken in his locker. I had my showdown with Yasmani Robles just 3 days after I had started my new life at Calico Academy of the Arts, a magnet school in the middle of Miami. To get in, you had to you had to have good grades, pass an interview, and either submit a portfolio for painting or writing or audition for theater or music. You would think all of the effort that someone has to go through to get into Calico would have kept out the bullies, but I guess not. I guess there are just too many of them in this world. If your school only allowed kids who'd never pick on anyone, you'd have an empty school. Whatever. It's not like I hadn't learned how to handle bullies back in Connecticut. On Wednesday, between 4th and 5th periods, I went to the lockers along with 500,000 other kids. I stowed my history book and grabbed math so that I could do my homework during lunch, then opened my bag of magic tricks and put on my gotcha stamp ring. We would be doing introductions in my 8th period theater class, and I thought I could use it to demonstrate some sleight of hand. Magic is kind of my thing. I had a minute before I needed to go, so I took out my diabetes bag and fished out my glucose meter. I thought I'd be all right until lunch, but I'd started to feel spacey and dreamy at the end of the last class. My blood sugar levels might be falling. Best to check now. As I rummaged, I noticed the tall kid next to me struggling to get his locker open. He was as Cuban as they come. brown, built like a track and field champ, with a haircut so short you could see the bumpy skin on his scalp beneath what was left of his tiny curls. He'd wrestled with his combination luck yesterday too, and never figured it out, so he had to carry a full backpack of books to his next class. I'd had trouble with my locker on the first day, until I figured out you had to squeeze it as you turn the dial. And I'm a nice guy, so I said to him, "Hey man, my lock sucks too. The trick is to squeeze the top while..." That's all I got out before he punched his locker. The whole hallway grew quiet. Yasmani, I learned his name later, but why keep you in suspense, slowly turned to look at me. He scanned me up and down, doing some tough guy calculations to figure out if he could take me. Apparently, he thought he could, because he stepped up to me, fast, ferocious, chest out, arms wide. He'd been in a lot of fights, judging from his flat as a shamrock nose. "Just come back from safari, white boy?" he asked. "I mean, if you even are a boy." Let's take a second to break down that insult. The safari crack was because I had on canvas cargo pants and a cargo vest, each with 4 pockets, brimming with gadgets and tricks of the trade. Pretty much all the clothes I own have tons of pockets. I'm ready to perform at any time. You never know when the world is going to need a little magic. The white boy crack was because, I guess to him, I looked white. Back when I lived in Connecticut, kids were telling me to go back to Brown Town all the time. But I was in Miami now. New place, new rules about skin color. And if you are a boy, I kept my hair pretty long. It gave me a place to hide stuff in the middle of a trick. And to this caveman's mind, calling someone a girl was an insult. Whatever, I tried my Little Pony approach to handling bullies. "Sorry, just trying to help." And I started to walk away. He body blocked me. "You want to help me? Why would a sandwich like you think I need your help?" Now, I looked him in the eye. "Your lock's still locked, isn't it?" I probably shouldn't have said anything, but he called me a sandwich, and some insults you just can't let it slide. In response, he did what bullies do. He slapped my diabetes bag out of my hands. It hit the ground with a glassy crunch. My stomach crunched along with it. That pack contains my insulin, my syringes, my blue glucose meter, my Sharps disposal container for used needles, my Band-Aids, and a fun bag-sized Skittles. If he broke something important in that pack, I could be in real trouble. I knelt down to pick it up, my hands shaking as they reached for the bag. I tried to relax. I closed my eyes, breathed slowly, and remembered what Poppy had said to me after Mammy died. Fear is your body trying to tell your brain what to do, but the brain is the king of the body. It calls the shots. I opened my eyes slowly, the way good guys in movies do when they've just figured out how to beat the villain. I noticed that the bright young scholars of Calico Academy of the Arts had formed a ring around Yasmani and me. This crowd didn't seem as bloodthirsty as the ones in my last school had been. In Connecticut, kids hooted like in Planet of the Apes whenever a fight was about to start, jumping up and down and beating on each other in anticipation of someone getting wedgied back to the Stone Age. But these kids looked kind of grim and quiet, like this was some boring school assembly they had to attend. Well, from my perspective, it really didn't matter whether they were enjoying themselves or not. They had me surrounded just the same. I was trapped. Wait. No, that's an excuse. And I don't lie to myself. I could have pushed my way out of there if I'd wanted to, but now all eyes were on me. I had an audience, and I am a showman. Yasmani stretched his fingers wide before making a fist, and he said, "Time to die, little man. Stand up." I stood all right, got right in his face. "Time to die?" I asked. "Time to die," he repeated. "Like, the dead chicken in your locker?" I asked. What? See, that's the real secret to dealing with bullies. Change the game. You thought we were going to fist fight Mr. Tough Guy, but surprise, suddenly we're talking about murdered poultry. The, dead chicken in your locker, I said, explaining it to the crowd. That's the real reason you didn't want to open it. You didn't want anybody to see your dead chicken, so they wouldn't know you keep dead chickens in your locker because, I said, turning to face Yasmani again, what kind of weirdo keeps dead chickens in his locker? Stop saying dead chicken! Everybody laughed. That probably would have sent Yasmani into berserker rage if some girl hadn't shrieked, blood! As she was pointing at Yasmani's locker. What? Yasmani asked again. He and everybody else looked at his locker, and yeah, there was watery pink blood leaking from it. The kind that you find at the bottom of styrofoam meat packages. Not a lot, but just enough to drip from the bottom of the locker door and pool on the floor. And it only takes one tiny bit of blood to freak people all the way out. Not me, though. I mean, I didn't know sangre de pollo is going to come dripping out of his locker, but it wasn't exactly a surprise either. I could work with it. Open it, I said to Yasmani, unless you're too chicken. If he hadn't been completely bewildered by what was happening, he would have gorilla rushed me for sure. Instead, he walked over to his locker and tried to undo the lock. 2, 4, 7 yanks on it, each angrier than the last. Then he punched his locker door again and said, I can't open this stupid thing. I keep trying, but I can't. Here, let me. He took a step back to let me through, but not without asking, what? You know my combination. His combination was still taped to the back of the lock, about as sharp as a bowling ball. This Yasmani. I looked at him over my shoulder with spooky eyes and replied, fool, I am a magician. I can read your mind. Then I spun the dial with fast fingers, clock, then counter, then clockwise again. I tapped the lock open dramatically and with a flourish, removed it. You want the honors? I asked him, stepping aside with a gracious magician's bow. Yasmani, bro, had gone full autopilot now, stepped forward and opened the locker door, every kid behind him on tiptoe, watching, waiting. A whole raw chicken, like you get at the grocery store, with bumpy yellow skin and no head, flipped out of his locker, landed on his chicken butt, and went splat. Kids scattered, screaming. Adults would be here any second. Yasmani did a 180 and looked around wildly. He didn't have eyes anymore, just fear. I didn't put no dead chicken in my locker, he yelled. You gotta believe me. I believe you, I said. Of course I did. It was I who had put it there after all. Abracadabra, chicken plucker. Chapter 2. Salvador Vidon, how long have you been attending my school? Asked Principal Torres. I'd only been at Calico for a few days, but I already knew 3 things about her. 1, she was a big woman. 2, she was a smart woman. And 3, most importantly, she was the principal. That meant she had 0 tolerance for Kakasika. Sorry. Kakasika is the word Miami talk show hosts use instead of BS. It literally means dry poop, but it means, dude, your poop is so played out, don't even try to play me with your played out poop. 3 days, I replied to Principal Torres with exactly 0 Kakasika in my voice. 3 days, she repeated, letting her gaze drift around the room. Yasmani and I were sitting in tiny plastic chairs in front of her desk, both of us doing our best not to move. Maybe then Principal Torres wouldn't see us. You know, like caveman hiding from T-Rexes. No dice. Principal Torres' glasses suddenly caught the light and locked on me like prison searchlights. And how many times have I seen you in my office, Mr. Vidon? I paused before answering. The first time was on day 1, but my doctor had told me to inform my principal about my diabetes and the special equipment I needed to manage it. Like needles, because if you bring needles to school, everyone assumes you're a drug addict. the second time? Yesterday, Mr. Lynott, my PE teacher, had sent me to her office for eating candy. But what was I supposed to do? Let myself pass out in the middle of the obstacle course? Principal Torres had said she would let Coach Lynott know I had special permission to pop the occasional Skittle. And this time was because of Yasmani. None of this was my fault. But I didn't say any of that. Principal Torres, I already knew, didn't like excuses, so I kept my face neutral and said, "You have seen me 3 times. Do you think I see every child who attends this school once a day, every day of the school year? No." "That is exactly correct," she said. Her smile could wilt flowers. "So why do you think I have had the pleasure of enjoying your pleasant company in my office every day of the school year so far?" I thought for a moment. Actually, I just made a face like I was thinking, for the sake of the performance, then because the students and faculty of Calico have a lot to learn about how to make a school safe for diabetics. She blinked and kept blinking for a few seconds. "Huh," she said, sitting forward in her chair. "You know, I was all about ready to tear into both of you, but honestly, Sal, you may be right. Calico's still pretty new. We've only opened 5 years ago, and we've been growing and changing this whole time." She shook her head to help her get back to her point. "We've never had a student with type 1 diabetes before. I'm going to have to instruct my whole staff on how to meet your needs. The students, too. I'll tell my science teachers to include a lesson or 2 on diabetes. We will do better for you, Mr. Vidone. I promise, and I apologize." One of the quickest ways you can tell if an adult is quality people is if they'll apologize to a kid when they think they're wrong. Principal Torres was someone I could work with. "Thank you," I said. She nodded before she turned her searchlights on Yasmani. Not a hair moved, by the way. It was like her hairdo was made of Legos. "I see I'm going to have to make an example of a few people who don't know how to create a welcoming learning environment. Maybe then the school will get it through their thick collective heads that bullying will not be tolerated under any circumstances." Man, Principal Torres wasn't even talking to me, but she made my guts flutter just the same. "What did I tell you at the end of last school year?" she said to him, parting her lips but not her teeth. This was usually the point in the conversation when the bully starts denying everything, blaming the victim, changing the subject, etc. I was ready for this. I'd made 2 bullies cry in front of principals in my last school just by calmly sticking to the facts and being polite. Adults really like polite kids. But Yasmani didn't behave like other bullies I'd known. He looked at his shoes. "I'm having a bad day," he told his ratty high tops. A spattering of chicken blood decorated his right shoe's toe. "No," said Principal Torres, "you were having a bad day. Now you're having the worst day of your young life because now I have to expel you." "Wait, what?" I interjected. "It wasn't that big of a deal, Principal Torres. He shouldn't get expelled just for knocking my med bag out of my hands." She pushed her huge glasses up her face. "Unfortunately, Mr. Robles has a history at this school since the moment he got here. I have been bending over backwards to try to give him a proper education. Do you remember, Mr. Robles, how I helped you to complete the paperwork last year so that you could attend this very special magnet school?" Yasmani hunched over even more. "Yes." "Do you remember at the end of last year, after all the fights you got into and the problems you caused me, the little heart-to-heart we had right here in this office?" "Yes." "And what did I tell you then, Mr. Robles?" "That I was on probation." "That you were on probation. One more altercation with another student and it would be adios." She pronounced adios like an American with 3 syllables. I wondered for a minute if she was a Latina who didn't know Spanish, but she cured me of that idea with her next sentence. "Y si no tienes ninguna defensa para ofrecerte, dingo, cow." I'm really bad at this, sorry. Chao pesca o ahora mismo. My own Spanish is pretty okay, though I hadn't gotten to practice it as much since mommy died. Chao pesca o basically means see you later, alligator. And defensa means defense. She was asking him if he had anything to say in his defense, or it would be bye-bye, Yasmani. And I mean, I clearly wasn't the first kid he bullied. Chacho was in big trouble. Yes, he said. He looked at the door, then back to Principal Torres, then the door, then Torres. I will have a defense in a minute. Principal Torres cocked her head. She almost laughed, but inhaled instead. In a minute, Mr. Robles? The time is now. Speak now or forever hold your peace. He didn't look up or raise his voice or anything. He just said, I just need a second, Principal Torres. My lawyer is coming. Now she did laugh. Your lawyer? Her office door opened. In walked a very recognizable 7th grader, bringing in her own chair from the hallway and wearing a big smile on her face. I knew her even though I'd only been at the school for a few days. It was 𝐺𝑎𝑏𝑖 𝐵𝑟𝑒𝑎𝑘, student council president, editor of the school newspaper, and apparently Yasmani's lawyer. I came as fast as I could, she said. So what'd I miss? All right, we're going to stop there. We're about to start with chapter 3, but that is where we are going to stop. And if you are interested in continuing this book, then don't forget that you can always contact one of our locations to either put a hold on it, or you can do that electronically, digitally, through our app or on our website. And then you can continue the story to see how does Sal and Gabby become friends after all of this, and how are they going to break the universe? So I have a lot of questions. And oh my gosh, I never thought about putting a chicken in someone's locker, but I guess in this case, it kind of worked in his favor. So if you would like to continue this, I hope this got your interest going, and you'll have to see what happens next. All right, let's see what kind of book we're going to be reading together next time. All right, before we figure out what we're going to be reading next time, I did want to mention, because I forgot, and I'm so sorry, that this book, you can get it as an ebook on Hoopla and as an e-audiobook. Also, there is actually a sequel to this book as well. So if you do end up enjoying this book, then you can still continue the story with another book with Sal and Gabby in it. All right, so let's see what we will be reading next time. All right, here we go. Ooh, it is landed on Miss Jessica. So that means a book of my choice, something that I have had on my list for a while and have not had a chance to read. So I'm very excited because there are so many books out there that I want to read, and that is why we're doing this type of chapter book story time, because I want to introduce so many great titles to you. So I can't wait until next time when we see what we'll be reading, and it is something that has been on my list for a while. So thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, you can go to evpl.org to access all of our resources. If you follow us on social media or at EVPL Library on YouTube, then you will always be notified when we have new videos that we're adding and new activities that we're bringing to you for lots of fun. So thank you again for joining us. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.